Hey everyone, trying something new today. It's kind of like a short and impromptu audio post. I hope you like it. Here are a couple of things I find either interesting or problematic with jobs to be done surveys, the ones that I've seen in the past. Um, they use a 5-point Likert scale that has no neutral in it. So why might this be a problem? Well, on one hand, um, well, actually, multiple hands, since I've got 3 points to make here, um, it forces you to choose a side. So if you don't have a strong opinion one way or the other, a Likert scale without a neutral option really kind of makes you pick either you agree or disagree, or it's unimportant or important, or you're satisfied or unsatisfied to one degree or another. And this can be kind of frustrating if you're actually neutral on a particular topic. So the next point is it pushes you towards agree or it pushes you towards important. Um, Without a neutral option, you might end up selecting agree or satisfied or important, even if you're in the middle. And this is because those options can seem like the middle ground when there's no true neutral choice. So on a standard type jobs to be done Likert scale, you'd have extremely unimportant, very unimportant, important, somewhat important, and extremely important. So in the middle is important. So that's tough when you're neutral. Important isn't the right answer, and and obviously the last point is that it doesn't capture true neutrality. So having a neutral option allows you to to show accurately when you generally don't have an opinion on something. If it's not there, you have to pick a side, even if you're neutral. So that's number one. The second thing I wanted to do is kind of go through the point, the different point systems we've got in Likert scales. So I'm going to talk about 3 point, 5 point, 7 point. Which one's better? What are the pros and cons of them? Um, so let's start with um, let's start with the 5 point scale since we see that probably more often than we do the others. The pros of the 5 point scale are that it gives you more choices than just agree or disagree or neutral. That middle neutral point lets you show if you really don't have a strong opinion, and it's fairly common and easy to recognize. So that those are pros. And on the con side, you've got the neutral middle point that um, people might tend to select because they don't want to think too hard because you got five choices. Um, and it still may not give you enough detail. May not allow people to express themselves enough um, for the research you're trying to do. The 7 point scale, it provides you the most options. You can give more detailed feedback as a respondent, and the middle point has maybe even more power with regard to establishing your neutrality on something because you've discarded or disregarded all those other options on either side. On the con side, you have so many choices that it can become confusing, boring. It can create fatigue in respondents, and that can be a problem. And it just takes more time and effort to go through all the options. So the scale that I've been kind of promoting, talking about for a few years now, is a 3 point scale, and I'm going to get into it just a little bit more about when you might use that in a moment. But what are the pros for that? Well, it's simple and easy to understand, very simple. It doesn't take very long to answer the question, and it clearly shows I either agree or disagree or I'm neutral. those those are pretty much the only options. Or I think it's important, unimportant, or I'm neutral. The cons are that it doesn't give you very many options to give you that nuanced opinion, that you might wanna give, and, it doesn't really, you know, you are we certain that we've captured the true feelings? So those are cons for that scale. So let's say you wanted to do surveys faster and more cheaply. Where have we heard that before? Which scale would be the best choice? And why would you want to do it faster and more cheaply? I mean, smaller companies, smaller budgets, you know, shorter time frames required. Those might be reasons to do it. So what's the best choice? So I think most people would land on a 5-point scale to get the best balance of cost and time and fidelity. But what if you're trying to do research for companies that are struggling to compete, but they just can't afford these hoity-toity research theater projects that we typically see put on by, especially by consultants. And if it's not consultants, it's expensive internal departments that some companies just don't have. Um, you know, I am going to be doing some testing in this area because I'm typically not working with Fortune 500 brands any longer. So I'd like to find out. Um, I'd like to understand better um, where the trade off is between a 3 and a 5-point scale. Um, so the next thing I just wanted to mention was that I, funny, but recently I've heard more than one person refer to top two box analysis as being a 2-point scale. And yeah, I know that'll get argued away and probably should be. But um, when you see respondents skew to the positive or even the negative end of a scale, especially when there's no neutral, um, doesn't that tend to overemphasize that positive end or that negative end? So if you're using this to find struggles in the market, does that overstate the size of the opportunity, like significantly? I would love to see some research. I'd love to see some testing that demonstrates whether that's true or not. I think there's people that need to do that research. And some people would argue that it does overstate it, but the people that should probably be establishing that it doesn't do that, they tend to refuse to have another look at it and they stick to what they've always done. So I'm gonna wait for some of the mavericks out there to do some research on this and provide some data for everybody. So as I mentioned earlier, I've talked about doing these 3-point scales for fast and fast, easy, and cheap surveys. Um, they're basically designed to provide directional insights, for earlier stage or mid-market companies. Those companies are just not going to pay the bill of a big consulting approach to research. So I think it's important to at least consider these things to figure out what level of fidelity do they need in order to make the right decisions at their stage, of their company's life cycle or within the competitive arena that they are in today, which is going to be similar companies that don't spend a lot of money on expensive research, good or bad. Um, so these are all things I'm thinking about occasionally. I'd love to hear what you think. I hope you enjoyed this shorter audio post. Let me know if you'd like to see more of these impromptu posts, possibly a few times a week. And until next time, make sure to never stop innovating.